good. Just trying to see. I'm gonna put it up on the bigger screen actually.
Yeah, because I'm showing two things. Uh, two basically two of the Warcraft logs. So,
Yeah.
have you looked at logs before at all?
No, not really.
Okay,
I've seen them, but I looked at them and I'm just like, eeh.
right. Okay. So normally when we post a log, it'll sometimes it'll start with one of these. Like if we run multiple dungeons at night, then we'll post a log and you'll see like all these different things on here, right? So obviously you can tell like if you do an M0, it doesn't show up like a name. It just shows up as individual fights for some reason. So these are only if you actually do actual keys. So what we're going to do today is look at like the Necrotic Wake, the 4 run that we did, and then we'll compare it in some ways with this person's 17 Pime, I think is the person's name. So I think in general, I mean, like they're obviously they're 240, you're 222, and then this is 17, and that's a miss, and this is a 4 Necrotic Wake. So there's differences, right? Primarily in the fights and stuff like that. But I think in general, what you look at when you're looking to try to like increase your performance or improve your performance, I should say, whether it's increasing DPS or just improving performance, there's a couple of different factors that come into play, right? There is always going to be how much of the rotation you know and are comfortable with, and are able to make adjustments on the fly on. It's how much do you know the dungeon and all the various mechanics associated with that dungeon. Then it's how much do you know the fight, the individual fights within the dungeon too, and the individual things you know about that particular fight. And then also, how aware are you, situational awareness of the environment around you. Because, for example, right, if you're just taking a lot of damage and then dying because of it, then that obviously will hinder your DPS. Or if you're like staring at your bars a lot, and then the group in the pack moves, and you're not noticing it because you're staring at your bars, and they're like now out of range, but you don't know that yet. So you're still because you're staring at your bar, and then you have to go catch up, right? So stuff like that. So and then also on top of that, if you're not like tomorrow's reset, and we will be in fortified, sanguine, and necrotic, right? So my guess would be in general, so fortified will be on any like 2+ key. Sanguine occurs. It's the first affix, and the first affix always occurs on a starting at a 4 key, right? So this level key, and then the next affix always starts at a 7 key and above, which will be necrotic. So sanguine, when a mob dies, drops a red patch of ground on the red patch on the ground that heals that mob and damages you, right? So when I talk about situational awareness and the fight, it's not just hey, our pat's coming and I don't want to be too close to that side and stuff like that, but also being able to look at the things we're fighting and to see, especially like this coming week, hey, that thing's about to die, and once it dies, a big patch of red's gonna drop. So you need to avoid that. So you need to either start moving and start getting ready for it to die, and theoretically, hopefully, the tank is also paying attention so they can start moving the pack. So all those things come into it. But what we're going to look at is primarily a couple things and how it impacts your play. One is going to be rotation. Two, it's going to be like how efficient were you in the dungeon. The next thing would be looking at like any wasted resources. So for you as an example, when you're playing your feral druid, combo points will be your wasted resources, right? Potentially wasteful resources. When Armag is playing his warrior, rage is a wasteful resource because you never, in general, because rage doesn't start at 100; it starts at 0, and then you build rage. So if you're sitting at 100 rage, and then you're generating rage, but you're not using it, you're wasting all that rage that is being generated but not being used. If you're playing hunter and all the focus, I think focus starts at 100, but then essentially if you're spamming spells that build focus, but you're at max and you're spamming those spells, and there's like no need for you to spam those spells. So you look at wasteful resources, and then you're starting looking at your rotation. I think that's what I talked about, is your the casting. So that's what we're going to look at in terms of today. So in general, before we look at this person's stuff on the right, let's just walk through the Warcraft logs, kind of like interface a little bit. So when you go into it, you start out here. A couple of things you can take a look at is this tells you which dungeon it is, tells you the level, and it tells you the duration of the fight and what time it was that it happened, right? By default, it'll have both bosses and trash, which is fine. By default, also, it has analyze, and it's on tables. So a lot of this stuff you don't have to worry about right now, because it can go more in-depth and stuff, and I haven't played around with a lot of this stuff. Replay is really good for like a high-level analysis, but for some reason, the Necrotic Wake, the replay for this one is not working. And I can show you a replay on another dungeon as an example of why you would want to do something like that. Then underneath here, the things that you look at are tables, timelines, and you would use queries. And I'll go into those individually. But by default, it's on tables, it's on summary. And this is where you start seeing... So normally there's like an ad here, but I have ad block. So I don't see an ad. So you can always hit this square, and then it expands it out. So essentially what you're looking at is, this is kind of like your overall damage type of thing, chart graph, stuff like that. So you're looking at things of just, and what it shows here is the blue line is all the damage done. The red line is all the damage taken, and the green line is all the healing done. But this is just so high level that it probably doesn't really, like, it probably doesn't mean much. What you start getting into is, in this run, you can see it breaks up who the tank, who the DPS are, and the healers. So then you go look at your damage done by sources, and then you can see this is where people start looking. And in some cases, this is as far as, this and one more screen is as far as they go. But we'll go a little more in depth. So on here you can see that this hunter did 3.6. I did 2.7, Silver Surf did 2.2, and you did 1.5. Now, the thing for you to take notice of, because I think you use details, is that when you use details, if you're watching details or the fight is finished and stuff like that, you might see that detail says, hey, you did 2 point something DPS, right? Let's say 2,100 DPS. And you might go, oh, man, that's awesome. And then you look at Warcraft logs, and you might see that it's either 100 DPS short or up to 1,000 DPS short. The difference is that details, it measures and calculates your DPS based on your fights. Not the whole duration of the dungeon, just the fights that you had in the dungeon. It doesn't account for things like how long between pulls. It doesn't account for things where you're not in a fight and the dungeon's still going. Details, and that's what details does. Warcraft logs counts from the very beginning when the dungeon starts. So when that big yellow screen comes up and that timer comes down, that starts at 0000, and it finishes the fight when like the boss or your key is done or your dungeon is done. For example, you've gotten 100%. Mobs, and you get all the bosses. That's when it stops the dungeon, the timer. So that's why it always shows lower, because it does that whole, it's damage overall, so it calculates that time, not by the actual pack fights. That's why details will always show higher than the Warcraft logs. Okay, so
I'm trying to reset mine each like boss fight or something, just so I can see as far as my details goes. So it's always changing.
Well, details will always change. Actually, you don't have to, like, if you only reset if you want to wipe it. But the moment you get into another fight, it starts over again, and it doesn't like go. it does overall based on like the dungeon that it's in and stuff like that. So, but yeah, clearing it before each dungeon is just generally relatively good. But I don't think you really have to. But definitely clearing it before is good. So,
Mhm.
like I said, this section is the damage done, right? It kind of shows who you are and then your DPS, and then this is the healing, damage taken overall by everybody, then deaths with a timer of when you died. So essentially, like basically, what it shows is I died on that. This is the part where we were tanking the. We were fighting. I think that pack of stuff below that stage, and I disappeared underneath the stage. And that's where like I couldn't get out. I couldn't do anything. The things were still hitting me and stuff like that, and that's where I died. So
Yeah,
all
like
the,
I'm stuck. I
yeah,
remember you
exactly.
saying that.
Yep. Now this also tells you what you died to. So for example, you died to the Shadow Well. So I think there was one of the pack fights that usually has like a sorcerer. The sorcerer casts Shadow Well, and I remembered you mentioned you had like Shadow like hey like what was hurting stuff like that. Shadow Wells, and this goes into both the mechanic of the fight, the individual pack, as well as like your environmental surroundings. So the sorcerer, if you don't interrupt it, which is casting a Shadow Well, then what happens is it places a black circle on the ground, and that does massive damage. So if you stood in there for long enough, that's what killed you on that one. Final Harvest, and I think you remember this one, is when that boss, the third boss, after you kill all the ads, the boss will detonate. That's where all the green puddles were on the ground, the big green puddles, and that's what you died to over there. So that one will tell you what you died to and when, so that you can always look at like estimate timing wise when it is. Now this for some people have these collected in their logs and some don't, but this shows you who the in the group, their gear, their covenant, and who their soulbind is, their talents, their items in the soulbinds, and then their legendary. So Silver Surf, for example, was not 198 eye level and no legendary. So you see things like that. So
Mhm.
that's how you read this initial summary page. And like I said, a lot of people just come here, look quickly at this, and then what they do is they go to damage done. So let me remove that because that's normally not there. So damage done then goes into this view, right? So you go into all these things of what the damage happens to be, and then what you're looking at are the different parses. So if you were to hover over, for example, this percentage, it means that you're like the percentile that you performed of all other necrotic wake 4 keys, or just all 4 keys, and how many parses there were. So I did, in terms of damage, I was in the 78th percentile out of 2,940 parses, right? And then you were in the 10th percentile out of 1,584 parses. So basically, gray means that hey, you're not doing so hot, and then you start going to green. I think it's green, blue, different shades of purple, and then gold. Those are the percentiles. So now, if we look over here on this person's on the damage done, what you'll see is, for example, I said the green, the blues, the purples on there in terms of like their percentile measurements, right? So
Mhm.
that's what that means. So you always want one of those colors versus gray. But like I said, you're still working on it. So I wouldn't worry about the percent, this so much when you're looking at it. You can use that as a way to measure have you improved, right? So let's say you're right now
Definitely.
like 10, right? Then next time you say I want to, like you're trying to get to 20, or your goal is you want to get to a green, then to a blue, then to a purple, and then to a gold parse, right? So that's what. So usually a lot of people just stop right there. Tanks will go looking at like damage taken, right? So for example, I'm still trying to learn the monk, so I mitigated 49.92%. Not great in my mind, but I don't know how monks measure out, right? Because if I were to go and say, look at, let's say, let's go and say, look at my paladin, My paladin and damage taken is 71.54% mitigated with like a 35-36% absorb, which is much higher than that brewmaster. But I don't know in general, and I can look up brewmasters to compare and find out. But I've been lazy on that one and not looking at it. So, but let's focus on you now. So we're going to skip back to damage done. So when you look at damage done, so like I said, don't worry about this so much. The thing on here I would look at the most is your active, right? Because yeah, the DPS number right here tells you just how much you did, but what it is active. So if you die, that reduces your active time and stuff like that. And you had 2 deaths. So if you look at it, you were active 71.10% of the fight, and then of the duration, right? So this accounts for the whole dungeon. So even times when you're walking, times when you're trying to move from one pack to the other pack, stuff like that. So effectively, in most cases, theoretically, we should, depending on dungeon to dungeon. For example, DOS, the other side. There's so much time spent traveling that the active time is probably lower than some of the other dungeons. Like HOA might have a much higher active time, right? But in general, for example, if you compare active times, so theoretically, what you want to look at is if you look at what the tank's active time is, you want to be as close to what the tank's active time is. And the reasoning why is that as long as the tank is active, that means that the pull is happening, assuming the tank hasn't died. And then that way, if you're closer to it, that means that you're actively engaged during that whole fight. At 71.10%, if let's say ignore the fact that we know you died twice, if you ignore the fact that we didn't know you died twice or you didn't die twice, that means that there was at least a good portion of the fight that you weren't active, meaning that either you're just stationary or you're away from the fight and you're doing something else. Now, that might be proper if you're doing something strategic in some cases. One possibility is, hey, we're going to go and pull this group on the left, for example, but someone has to go and grab let's say, a spear. So they won't be considered active because they're going out to grab a spear. They're not fighting. But that's strategically and purposefully. But so essentially for you, I would say one thing is that we need to figure out, and it could be the 2 deaths, and it could be other things, but we need to look at like trying to work your ability to be a little more active. So that's one of the first things to look at, right? Now, the next thing that you do within this one is you click on yourself. You just click right here, and what you'll see happens is that this puts your name up here with an X that you can always, like, if you remove it, it goes back to that previous view, right? So if you remove this, it shows everybody again. But if we just show Rothgard, we just look at here, this huge chart that you're not going to really learn anything from, of all the different skills, right? It's like, great, but that's cool. Now, the important thing here is this. This is that damage profile that I was linking earlier, and this is their damage profile. So at a high level, the first thing we're going to look at is the fact that Ferocious Bite for this one is the first. So in terms of that, you're both using, like, you're using Ferocious Bite as your top most damage, which is good.
Yeah.
So if you look at his,
generates the most DPS from what I've seen. Just yeah.
Yep. So that's good. So in terms of that profile, you're on that. But the thing that you look for is the pattern, right? So it's Ferocious Bite, Brutal Slash, Rip, Melee, Rake, Shred, Thrash, and then stuff like that. But then you start looking at yours, it's Ferocious Bite, Melee, which is your auto attack. Rip, Rake, Thrash. So you start going into the fact that your auto attack was higher than some of these other ones. So that might mean that because your auto attack was higher, that might mean that there were what we call like maybe empty GCDs where you didn't attack and then you waited and then the auto attack hit and then you waited and then something else happened before you cast something else. So that's why you had more auto attacks than you did like a skill usage. So one of the things that you would look at is this is a 28-minute fight. This one's a 27-minute fight. Now, different polls and stuff like that in general. But if you look at it, then the next thing you look at, other than you look over here going, hey, okay, in the future, what you want to do is make sure that this is like the skills that you want it to be of in terms of lining up, right? You want more brutal slashes, you want more rip, and then melee should not be like your second one. Is what you learn from
Yeah.
comparing yours to theirs, right?
Yeah,
Then
and I
you
think
all,
I know where the melee comes from. I think I know what that issue is. I'm working to address that one.
yeah. I mean that's the thing. That's how this helps you identify some of that type of stuff. But then you also look at like how much ferocious bite does for this person. Then you look at how much ferocious bite does for you in terms of like ratio comparison, right? So we're not looking at the number of damage to compare. We're not saying that you need to be 4.5. What we're saying is, in terms of this did 37 to 38% of the total damage, while yours was 25% of your total damage. So what do we need to figure out is how do we make sure that you get more ferocious bites damage up? So the way you do that is next look is the next column, which is cast. So cast is how many times you use a skill. You cast a skill, right? So if you look at it, he casted Ferocious Spite, or she casted Ferocious Spite 173 times. So you cast it at 65. So if you look at the average cast over here, this is the what you're looking at is the damage for the like 173 casts. This total damage, so that's the average. So we're not going to worry about that. What we're going to look at is the number of casting. So what you'll see here is that your melee is 814. His regular melee is 1,517. So he had a lot of auto attacks as well. But the thing is that he had a whole bunch of other ones too, right? So Brutal Slash is at 212, and yours is.
I don't have Brutal Slash
Oh,
equipped. I have a I have Feral Frenzy. He's got Brutal Slash.
Oh, that's a talent then. Okay, got it.
Yeah, because I saw that too, and I was like, what the heck is? And then Brutal Slash. Yeah, I have Feral Frenzy. They're two different ones. So yeah, he utilizes that. I utilize Feral Frenzy.
Okay. So let's say you keep with your current one, Feral Frenzy over here. But then you look at Rip is at 53. Your Rip is at. I'm not sure why it's not showing.
It's cast with Feral. Every time I cast Feral Frenzy, it automatically casts Rip. So it applied when I do my Feral Frenzy. Yeah, I ordered that too, and then I remember, that's right, I don't manually cast Rip. It goes whenever I cast Feral Frenzy.
If that's the case, based on your talent, then what we just need to look at focus on is the profile of, let's see, Feral Frenzy. It wards 5-point combo, so it still uses a combo, and it's a bleed damage over time. And then. Yeah, so it's a combo point generator. So it doesn't have a cooldown, so it's a combo point generator. So effectively what we need to do is find out why you only had 9 casts of Feral Frenzy.
I forget about it.
Yeah, so
that's probably why I forget it there. I know what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna focus my rotation down and not because the AoEs don't really have my AoEs are so small. You can see I don't think he uses Thrash. Thrash is his AoE. I think he uses it like, as you can see, he doesn't use it.
107 times, so not often in comparison.
Yeah, and if you look at the damage it does, the AoEs are pitiful. They do very little compared to the single targets. So unless we're really pulling in a group, I'm probably going to focus more on my single target attacks because those generate the combos. I've kind of got a plan in my head because I think that's why I do a lot of melee, is I'm too busy trying to use all of my single party and all of my AoEs, and I'm using up all my. It's not mana, I think it's energy or something. I'm using it up until I can't cast anything, so I'm hitting the button, but nothing's happening.
Yep.
Because I'm using them up too quickly. I need to focus and use those on something that's actually going to generate meaningful damage.
Yep. And that might also account for why you have like melee so high, because if you just went and dumped all your energy and then you're waiting for it to build back up, then you're not doing anything but just auto attacking. Same thing for him, right? So this is where we're going to start introducing you to things like queries now. So queries is both complex and not complex at the same time. So in terms of the not complexes, I don't use right now. I don't use new expression. I don't use from paste. I just do new query. So you select damage, casts, healing, interrupts. You can just select multiple, but I just usually select one thing at a time because it doesn't display very well. So, for example, what we're going to do on this one is I'm going to look at resources, right? And so when you select something, you have things like, and I would advise you to play around with this, but what I'm going to do is friendly resources. And then resource type, I'm going to say combo points, right? And then the actor is you. So I choose that. That's it. And I hit create pin. So what this then shows me is a graph of your combo points. So you have 0 to like 5, and up here, it's up here to 5, right? I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do the same thing with this person. I'm gonna do resources, and I want to do this just once with this person. Combo points. And then the reason why you do this is you look at the pattern of how their combo point usage is, right?
Yeah.
And then what you do is you look at these types of things where it's being held. So he's at 5, and it's being held for quite a bit. Yes, he's at 5 a lot, but you're also looking at because it's potentially if you're sitting on 5, like over here again, he's holding it for quite a bit. There must be a reason, but one of the things that you do, like for example, you, right, you're holding it for quite a bit over here. You're holding it a little bit over here, but you also see that you're not going up in frequency from whatever to a maximum of 5 and then down again to a maximum of 5 and down again. You're not going up and down as much as he is. These two huge gaps of you sitting up here, those. So if you ever wonder of like, hey, what's happening on stuff like that, this is where you go back to queries again. So for me, what I did was I was like, oh, I wonder why you had such a huge gap. So I'm gonna go look deaths, and I'm gonna say you. Oh wait, is that didn't work? Okay, so it's
That was funny. You're right. It
deaths.
doesn't display very well.
So maybe it's friendly deaths. Yeah, let's do that and see. There. So if you line those up,
I did.
it works up. Yeah, it lines up perfectly. So you're able to then solve the reason why, like, why did you hold during that time? It's well, you held because you died. So, but then you start. No, exactly. So other parts here is like, why did you hold here? And that's harder to figure out. So, but at least you start learning into the rotations of stuff and things like that. So this is your common points. Now, I'm going to move away from here into this other one. So you see up here you have the damage taken. So another thing you can look at is let me remove your name in general, is go and say, okay, what things that you can do over here is that in most cases melee will always be higher up than like ranged for damage taken, right? So tank, hopefully the tank is the highest, and then next people. And normally in general it's like you try to figure out like how you'll be the lowest as well, because that helps your play out in the future and it helps the healer out and stuff like that. So, but that's just damage taken. That's not anything to do with damage you're dealing, but damage that you're taking in. But what we're going to do now is look at resources real quick. Right, so this is resources. So this will then show you, this is me now. So let me go ahead and switch back to damage done. Let's pick Rothgard. Let's go to resources. So what we can look at from here, right, is all this, like how your combo point generation, what's generating each combo point, and when you're using stuff. That's a good way for us to take a look at things. But one of the things that we're going to look at here is your energy as well, right? Because one of the biggest things that we want to make sure that you're not doing is you're not capping your energy, capping your resources and stuff like that. So let me show you, without having to leave this one, is one way for you to look at stuff. So I'll remove this. If I'll go to summary and drop this, go to resources, So, one of the things that you can look at in terms of resources as you look at here is, in general, what's occurring. If you were ever wanting to compare, like, where do you sit up on what was happening? If you want to look for dead times of, hey, nothing was going on. And theoretically, for example, this first, you're looking at it at the, if you're looking at the seconds and the milliseconds occurring here, a lot of times this is the beginning, right? It's the tank going and pulling. So if you ever wonder, like, oh man, I'm not there, well, it's because the tank's doing the pulling and trying to get aggro. Then you start popping up. So this shows you everyone and what they're doing over here, right? But that's not exactly what you. In some cases, that's not exactly what you're looking for. You're looking for things that are specifically for you. So what you're looking at now is just you during the fight. Now this is used mainly to go and compare of your energy levels, right? So I believe this is your energy. Ignore events after death. But just to make sure, let's do a query. Say resources friendly, and I believe it's yours is called energy. We'll say actor is you.
Yeah, because I think mana is when I'm not in
Yep,
cat form, and then energy is when I am. Yeah.
correct. So I believe this is energy 100.5, but I'm not sure about the numbers exactly. Since it says resource, oh, it's hit points. Oops. So that's percent. That's why I was looking for it. Okay, there you go. Energy. So let's remove this one. I was wondering why it looked so weird. So this shows your energy here. Again, the two big pieces here, you died. So let's not look at that. Over here, though, is the top stuff is a couple things. We are pointing at you, and this is raw energy gained, right? And energy wasted. So I don't know, based on the fact if there's anything that you have in terms of skills that gives you energy, right? So an example is for rogues, they have a skill, I think it's called Symbols of Death, that will give them 40 energy. So it's wasted if I'm at 100 energy, or let's say even like 80 energy, and then I use that, I would lose the total amount of energy that the 40 that it could potentially give me. But in general, you're always sitting at 100 energy before the fight starts. So, like for example, let's say you're sitting over there, then you start using it. So I don't think, only in some cases do you wonder your max, because you might be pooling for a big burst window, which is perfectly fine. The way for you, but the important resource for you to determine if you're wasting is combo points. So over here, you're not too wasteful in general, I don't believe, because your Primal Fury gains you a raw 165 combo points to start the whole fight. Of that, you only wasted 12. Same thing over here. So that's a good way for you to like determine, let's say, like how improve. Like for example, if you look at this person, they're 350, they're 45, they're 273, they're 30. So they're a little more like Feral Frenzy over there. For them, they're wasted 36. So they're wasting a little more in terms of their side. So could they improve because of this? Probably. But it also might be the fact that they might be at max, but they might have been in fight periods where they couldn't make use of any more extra one because either like they were stunned or there were no more mobs to fight. And there might be things where that are just like adding combo points. Just like for me, like Holy Power, I currently still am wasting quite a bit of Holy Power. I'm wasting almost like kind of like this ratio that this person's wasting. So the other thing for you, I would say, is when you want to look at it is like this isn't bad for now, but as you start eking up, to always keep an eye on if you're wasting combo points, because combo points is so expensive to get in the first place, right? Because you got to spend energy on it. So one push of like 30 energy using a skill. Let's say, does this tell you how many skills? So like Rake uses 35 energy on one push, right? So, and you have a total of 100 energy. So like basically that's a little more than like a third of your energy already, and so that's expensive. So any common point that it generates would be definitely want to use. But if you start hitting on like stuff when you're capped on common points, then you're just wasting that the use of the potential finisher. So that's what you would want to look at it from that point of view, is that you could have used these common points on finishers. So in general, that's like a lot of the stuff. I'm not going to go into all the individual ones over here. For interrupts, it's important because when you look at it, what you want to compare is how many interrupts did you do. So you were interrupting. So that's great. That's a good job on that one.
I
right?
assigned it a key on my mouse. I'm actually tempted to get one of those mice that have like the 10 keys on the side. 'Cause I find that is way easier for me to just move my thumb on the mouse than trying to move my left hand off the WSD.
Yep.
I'm like, that's one thing I get confused is I'll move because I have my keys. I'm using like 6, 7, 8. So I move over to 6, 7, 8, and then I move back, and I gotta find the W again. I have to look down.
Yeah.
I gotta work on like I want to be like Artie said. Don't move your hand. Everything is within finger reach, or it's on the mouse.
Well, that's why
my
yeah, that's why let me see. I'm not advocating the use of this, but this is the mouse. So this is the mouse that I used to use when I started out, right? I used this mouse, 2-button mouse.
Yep, that's what I've got. I've got mine. Well, I don't have that third button there,
but I've changed to this the one? Nope. I've changed.
It looks like grenades to me. If you look at the side,
yeah,
it looks like an old-fashioned grenade.
This is the one I use now. So it has 6 buttons, right? So for me, my main attack is this button. My secondary attack is this button. This is my heal or a defensive. This is a defensive or a finisher, my rogue. This one, right here, for all my characters. So these 2 buttons are my primary set of attacks for all my characters. This button right here is my my big CD for all my characters. My big offensive CD for all my characters. This one,
with the CD?
huh?
What is this?
Cooldown.
CD you said?
Cooldown.
Oh, cooldown. Okay, gotcha. See, I'm still getting terms.
Yep. So it's like if for you, I don't know, like maybe Incarn is one of your big cooldowns. So and I don't know if that's a thing that you have or not as a feral cat or not, but like for warriors, it might be Avatar would go right there. Is what I'd have. But this one right here, because my resting thumb rests right around here, this is my interrupt for all my characters.
Roth, is he having an audio problem or on your end too?
No, he sounds pretty good to me.
Armag's always had issues with my audio for some reason.
I think Armag's computer's just unhappy.
Possibly too. So yeah, but so all my, like I said, it's on my mouse thumb button. So interrupts are pretty quick because if you look at, so if I remove this, now what you're gonna see is, so that was just you, but now what you'll see is interrupts from everybody. So your count 3, I have 13, right? Then I have 1, 1, 2, and then you start going through over here everyone else's count. So for me, it's always easy to have that interrupt in the same spot. So no matter what class I play, I just hit that as my interrupt. But so that's the other thing for you to just keep an eye on. So like if you look at like, oh my god, I didn't interrupt anything in a dungeon. Okay, I need to make sure that I interrupt stuff. Then that goes into, hey, I didn't interrupt something because maybe I didn't know what to interrupt. And then you can go over here and find out, okay, what are these people interrupting? And you find out what are the important things that you need to interrupt, which is one of the biggest things. So drain fluids is one of the top things that need to be interrupted, right? So that's how you gotta try and find out like what's the most dangerous stuff. Now, we're gonna get to the next thing, and that is we start getting into like if what we saw here was not complicated enough. We're going to start looking at a little more like in-depths of things. So what we're going to look at, I'm going to kill this now, is cast. So this huge thing, it's useless, right? This just shows all your thrashes. It's a block, so you can't tell anything on that one. So instead, the thing you look at is this again, right? So let's go ahead and look at casts. So again, this is kind of same to what we saw before, but this doesn't measure the damage. That's how the previous one. So it couldn't change because you can cast something infrequently, but it has a lot of damage. So it would show you on the damage done, it would show up higher. This does not look at that. This looks purely at how many things were casted the most. Not by its damage, but by its frequency of being cast. So, for example, you casted Thrash 233 times. This person casted Brutal Slash, which, like you said, you don't have, 212 times. Then their next highest one was Shred, Ferocious Bite, stuff like that. So the reason why it's good to look at this is, again, it's the same thing. You're looking at a profile and a pattern to find out if you're doing something too much, and then you might want to switch things up. Now, again, you might be playing, like, let's say you're playing, I think you said it was like something Frenzy, Feral Frenzy. Now, if you ever wanted to switch from Feral Frenzy to Brutal Slash, then what you would want to do is strive to be a little closer to, like, this, right?
I'm looking at the talent build right now. It's actually, I have Primal Wrath and he has Brutal Slash. He also has Feral Frenzy. I see it in there.
Oh, okay.
I saw it somewhere.
Yeah, I saw it.
He has, yeah, I have Primal Wrath. He has Brutal Slash.
That's what it was. Okay.
Yeah, I see it now. Because I saw it, I was like, wait, he does have Feral Frenzy. Okay. I see. I'm reading about it too. I'm like, that does sound like a good idea.
Lasting longer per component.
Yeah, I might. I mean, Primal Wrath, I don't know, kind of sounds.
69% of attack power.
Yeah, it is pretty good.
And applies rip to all enemies. So I think what you can do is, so one of the best ways to go about doing that is, one, you can sim it, but two is go to like a bunch of like those swarm dummies. Because you're Night Fae, right?
Yeah, I was doing that last night.
Yeah, so you can swap between the two talents and see, and then just clear your details after each session, like run it for like 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and then see what the overall DPS is, and then you can just change talents and try it again. But this is what you're looking at here specifically is to determine your action and your casting profile. The other one was damage profile. This is casting profile. Because now you're trying to look at things that you want to cast more than other stuff. And you're also looking at the frequency of cast. So again, 28-minute dungeon, 27-minute dungeon. If you look at his total casts versus, again, or hers, 1,053, and you had 623, right? So that means now your 2 deaths right here obviously played a big chunk of it. But was it... So my question is, would those 2 deaths over here been enough to make up for like almost 400 to 500 possible casts? Possibly not. So then you start looking at stuff. Now, so this was casts on tables, right? Now we're going to get into the part where you start learning about, okay, this is where you truly try to use another person's window to compare. And I'll show you how to find people. So
that's not creepy at all.
It's not creepy stalking people and they don't know. So you stay on casts, and you go to timelines. What this does initially is you just sit there and wonder, I don't know what the hell is going on, right? So you go over here. So you get to ignore this completely because this shows a whole ball. It doesn't do anything. Then you look at here, and this is like it goes to like the milliseconds. So what you'll see on your side is you start doing stuff at 15 seconds, and on this one, the first thing you hit is rake. So this is now your rotation. This is their rotation, right? So this is where you start looking at, okay, rotation wise. One, what are they casting? And what are they casting before something else casts? And how fast are they casting? So, you casted a Rake, 2 Thrash, Primal Wrath, Feral Frenzy, and Ferocious Bite. And of those, so this is a combo builder, I think. Yep. This is a combo builder because it's AoE. So you have 1, 2, 3 points. Primal Wrath is a finisher. Does Thrash award you a point per mob hit or just 1 point?
I think I have something, I don't know what the word is, but sometimes it awards 1, sometimes it awards 2.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So the thing, this is the part where like we can try. But let's go into resources, friendly.
I don't think I don't cast, I almost never cast my finishers unless I've got a full combo, so it must have,
Like I said, this is this doesn't show anything because this time here is done by the milliseconds. You're over here, like you're still all the way over here. So who knows when it's casting? So that doesn't help. I wish there was a way for us to like. Oh, I wonder if. There's one that's a buff. That's a buff and not that. So anyway, so this one starts going into like effectively kind of going into at minimum counting and then looking at your usage, right? But the biggest thing here, like I said, is rotation. So this person hit Rake, hit Thrash, Tiger's Fury. Oh no, hit Brutal Slash, Tiger's Fury, Berserk. Oh, Berserk was what I was calling, not Incarn. So Berserk.
oh yeah, I've got Berserk. I moved that last night on my screen so I could see it better and track it and make sure I utilize it way more.
Got it. Yeah, that's definitely good. You should always use that on cooldown, unless the pack is dying and then Berserk pops, then you reserve for the next pack. But so if you look at it here, this is where you start looking at what this person's casting, like their opener. Right here is their opener, and then after that they go into like their normal rotation. You look at yours, same thing, right? But the biggest thing I'll say, just looking at yours, is obviously like it's different because some of the talents are different. But if you look at it, the timing, frequency of skill usage is much faster on theirs. So that then tells you like the like how many, like they get 1,000 casts in, and this is how they get 1,000 casts in. So they're basically, if you look at the timing between your one and a second cast, over here is almost 3 seconds, or 2 and something seconds, right? Whereas,
and it's probably me looking down at my keyboard. Where's my button?
no, exactly. And then I think this is the way that helps you out in terms of, so this primary thing is to go 1, to look at your rotation, and 2, to see like what are they doing, and then you start looking at patterns of like, hey, when they have burst windows, stuff like that, what are they doing? And then this is one of those things that allows you to help improve, because then you're going to look at, okay, like you said, I'm using Thrash a lot, and this person uses Thrash quite a bit as well, but they're also using, like, since they're expecting Brutal Slash, they use that a little more.
They use Brutal Slash, yeah, a lot. I'm just curious, he keeps using Ferocious Bite, but he's not building any combo points.
Like, well, Brutal Slash does the combo points, right?
Yeah,
so...
I saw one where it was like Brutal Slash, Ferocious Bite, Brutal Slash, Ferocious... He's like, I think he did it like back to back almost. I'm like, how did he build the combo points?
And I think, I don't know, and that might be something. So here's the only thing I can tell you based on that, like right is there. So where is that? You said Ferocious Bite, right? So
yeah.
This one, Brutal Slash awards 1, and then Rake awards 1. Then he did it again. This one, Thrash. So unless he has the same thing that you have, where like he hit these two, and then he got something, a lucky proc maybe, and then it came 2. So now I'm going to show you into a very complicated one. This button here, replay. I would use this one for you, but I can't, because for some reason it wasn't recording. So I'm going to show this to you instead. I had it earlier, but I need to find it where it was. Forgot. Was it keys? Theater Pain 5. Was Rothgard in here? Yes. So, I'm going to show... You hit replay, and you see this, right?
Gosh.
This is cool. So, we use this in raids, like in Castle Nastria, to like learn one of the bosses because we were having a hard time with it. So if you look over here, you can look at all this damage taken, the group party, first pull, second pull, next pull, in this timeline, and all the things that you can click on, right? Well, you also can do things like queries on top of it, and called resources. I'll do friendly resources again, and then I'm gonna say combo points, and I'm gonna say Rothgard, create pin. So that shows that. Again, that does nothing for us. But what it does is this section is added. The slideshow navigation. So whoever group of fans built this, they are fantastic. So what I'm going to do is let it play a little bit. So this is all like the different icons, right? So this is us now. Now, if you watch, I'm going to click on Rothgard. Now I'll move this back a little bit. So Rothgard gains 1 combo point from Rake, and then it's going to keep playing.
There you go.
So it doesn't have a count of like different, like how many things. But actually, hold on. 495. Let me stop this for a second, and then let me look at this one again, because I didn't look at it earlier, so maybe it will be. We'll look at this one again and go into just the analyze resources. Oh, let me go into Rothgard specifically. Combo points. Does it show a total? Let me bring up the ever-friendly calculator. So 102 plus 111 plus 98 plus 57 plus 23 plus 10. 401. 495. I don't know if that's also wasted or not, so... Oh man, why did I take the calculator away? Dang it. So, what is it, 401? This last one? Plus 3, plus 16, plus 3, plus 5, plus 4. 432. So, I don't know if that number is the combo point number or not. So that part I can't tell. Or if that's the pull, or that's like the fight or individual like event number. So I don't know. But
Yeah.
At least what we're able to see is like what you're getting the combo points from. So what we can do this is go to play. Let's say FIME. Oh, let me pause this and just do a query real quick. Query. Resources, friendly, create pin. Yeah, so there's no way that he generates 6,000 combo points.
No, I would say not.
Right. So I selected Rhyme. See, Cast Prowl, they're moving in. 1 combo point. Oh, way too fast.
Whoa.
So let's slow it down. So this is what we can do. We can go Cast Prowl, swings, 1 combo point. I thought I only had
Why is that
his. Well, one is it probably could is moving so quickly, um, but this potentially, if it was some way of slowing it down a little more,
Yeah, you'd think they'd offer that because it's kind of. I mean, who can read and track that fast?
so the problem is
They
I had
know.
resources for friendlies, and then it's this one. So I'm not sure why it's like so much. I wish there was a way
Well,
to.
you have.
Oh,
On
here,
mine,
let
you
me
have
pause.
resource combo points.
Ah, there we go.
You
This
have.
we can do it this way. So this way.
Okay.
So I had it on play. So I stopped playing.
Oh, okay. I also noticed on mine, you have resource combo points, whereas his is just resource. I don't know if that makes a difference too.
I thought I had it set to.
Yeah,
This is not
I'm just
showing.
looking at it.
So, but yeah. So this at least you can step through and you're wondering. Let's go back to here. Right, cast prowl. One common point from Rhyme's Break. One common point from Rhyme's Primal Fury. Then he casts Rake. Again. He swings. Auto. Swings. Thrash. So I'm assuming that's a common point. Gains 1 point from Primal Fury. Swings. Brutal Slash. Brutal Slash. Well, I'm not sure. At that point, I'm not sure if... Because it might be only one cast of Brutal Slash, and then that Brutal Slash over here is because it hits multiple targets. So you're just getting the combo point. Siphon Essence.
I don't know what that is.
Gains 50 energy. Cast Tiger's Fury. Cast Berserk.
Is this thing going backwards?
No, it's going forward.
Oh, because it says gained it, and then it said he cast it.
Oh, that's...
Be the other.
Yeah, no, I think it's the way that the... I think that's more of the way, like, the system, because you click it, and it gives it to you immediately. But it might have not finished... Like, the button press might have been not finished at that point, stuff like that. So, I've seen that happen on different ones. It does. The problem is that it doesn't help because we can't tell what the count happens to be, which is an annoying thing. So, and this doesn't show. Like I can't see the resources. So, but let's go back to analyze and cast timelines. Well, it's dead for you. So this one, like yours, is a little slower, but let's go back to again the same thing. So I said that one kind of like is good to show, but I think again the cast timelines. This is the way that you can go and compare. Like I said, your let's just go ahead and say, this is everybody again. Where you go and look at your rotation. So this is how like when I was talking to some of the other. This won't let me fix it. Ugh, whatever. So I'm just gonna close that. We don't have to deal with that now. So this is where we go and look at like, right. So this is your skill. So one of the things that when I was talking to like a previous tank and looking at the way they're doing it, because I was wondering, because they were hard to heal. Well, at least our healers were telling us that he was hard to heal. So I looked at one of the logs and found out like Shield of the Righteous wasn't up often enough. And then, for example, the Consecration wasn't being used often enough. And because Shield of the Righteous wasn't often enough, I was like wondering why it was. And it was because of the casting of their skills weren't like often. So holy power generation was not fast. And therefore you couldn't use your... So just like your Pharaoh Druid, they have spenders and builders. So again, same thing. So if you start casting more often, and then if you have a mouse that has multiple buttons to just click and hit on to do the stuff, like then you can save your other buttons for other stuff, and then your mouse will just be easy to like smack on, right? So if, for example, if Rake and shred are your, I'm just gonna pretend, are your two main ones. Then if you have your thumb being like swapping between them both, you can spread that out and quickly hit it without doing too much with your movement keys. Your left hand won't, or if you're right-handed, I'm assuming you're right-handed right now, but your mouse hand will basically be doing all your primary attacks and finishers, and your left hand can be, your movement hand can be spent to do movement or other things, like activating Convoke the Spirits, activating a trinket, stuff like that. Or you might go and say, you know what, I'm going to have my finishers on my left hand, on your movement hand, and stuff like that. But from here, what we're going to see is that your cast time could be upped in terms of frequency.
Yeah.
Like you see these massive gaps over here. And then actually, let's go look at your cast again, because not on timeline, but on tables. 20 times of Convoke the Spirits, that's pretty good. Convoke the Spirits is what? 2-minute cooldown. So the other thing you can look at is 2 minutes in a 33.
Now.
It's a 1 minute?
Yeah, I have the legendary, so it's down to 1 minute.
Okay. So you're pretty much on target for Convoke, because with a 33-minute dungeon, and then with TOP being one that, like, you finish the first boss and you gotta wait, then there's movement and travel time between that, so stuff like that. So I think the biggest thing here is just going and looking at like the big gaps, right? Yeah. Like this big gap probably is movement, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. But when in combat, right? Like what's like, this is not too bad. This is not too bad. But then you look at like this, like what's the big gaps in here for? So if I were to then compare, for example, my paladin, right, to his casting, you can see like the clumping is a lot tighter in terms of frequency of casting. So so this whole Shield of the Righteous is my, in terms like my spender, right, my finisher. Now I don't need to get to 5 like you do. I just need to get to like 3 or 2 to, like, this one requires 3 holy power to use it. But then sometimes I want to be able to have a pool of 2 additional reserves depending if I need to do other stuff. So, but you can see essentially the way it's like the frequency with which I cast stuff. Ignore Celestial Guidance, since that's like an automatic weapons proc. But you can see like the frequency in between is pretty fast. So I think one of the biggest things that you can do to work on that one, like I said, is one, look at their rotation, and then try that out on the dummies using their rotation that you're seeing in this timeline, and then improving the frequency of your casting. And those two things should be big improvements if you're able to do that by itself. And if anything that you learned from today is being able to use that to do that type of stuff.
Yep, it was definitely showing me like, oh, okay, like I definitely see what I need to work on, and
yep.
Once I have a better understanding of all of it, I'm looking at this like, okay, I can understand what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I see what they're doing. Yeah, it's definitely.
Yeah, because before it's complicated. Now let me show you how to stalk people, right? So if you ever you would just go to Warcraft logs, right? And what you do is you click on the hamburger menu, and then you look at Mythic Dungeons, right? Everything else here is raid, which you might want to look at, but Mythic Dungeons, you look at all reports, because rankings show the top rankings, but the problem is that a lot of the rankings do not have reports, or at least reports that you can access. So reports are important. So you go, these are all reports, right? So these are all the logs that everyone submitted. Like, so this is everyone in the world submitting over here. This is just a lot of logs, right? So what you do is you go to all classes, then you select Druid, and you select Feral. Now, you see logs within like the past, not all logs, this is just all logs in the past, like, I guess 2 hours or so. Or no, not more, no more than 2 hours, like maybe the last 24 hours. I'm not sure if there's like a whatever, but the last set of hours that this is from. Then, in order to find if there's any good ones, you start having to sift through stuff. So let's sift through this one, the other side. Then you look through and see like there's a feral there. This one's doing 7,000 DPS. This one's at 251. And then you look at their damage done, and they're at 85% parse. So you're looking for a high parse. If someone else is in a gray parse, you might as well just dump that and go somewhere else. Type of thing like that. Or like they have this high parse too. Even if that's a high parse, then that's pretty good. That's like, cause this is the left side's for all feral druids. But in some cases, the thing is that because of their item level, like these are all 250s, 240. Actually, this one being 243 is kind of like. So if you look at here, this person's a 243 survival hunter. This hunter is a 248 beast mastery hunter. So this one has higher eye level, but their survival hunter did more DPS. So, but again, like that's how you can look. And so just look at these. If they're parsed high, then you can get, okay, this person is doing well. If you are just, let's look at someone else. Let's see if this, oh crap, this person ran a lot of stuff. They went into, Taz. Yeah, okay, so let's go into Spires.
I never did that. I never did Taz. Taz is still going to be around in the next patch, right?
Yeah, Taz will be broken up into 2 dungeons instead of 1 massive one, so that's good. Oh. So this person is not a feral druid in this fight. This person is not a feral druid in that fight. This person is not a feral druid in that fight. Sanguine Depths?
Are they?
Nope.
No, they're not. I don't even think are they? I don't even think they're a feral druid. None of it's.
They must have been a feral druid somewhere around here for it to show up. Because normally the way it was set up is that it's feral druid. So somewhere on here, there's got to be an instance where they went feral. Or else this.
Oh wait, is that? Hang on, are they? Is that a bat? Oh wait, no, that's not it.
Okay, interesting. I said all feral druids and it didn't show it. Okay, let's go and look at this one. Okay, at least so this feral druid's doing 6,305 DPS, and they are 250 item level, and they're lower than that 7,000 one. So you go into damage done. And they're doing 58. So you saw the other one was purple, right? So this one is like a lower parse, but still pretty good. So it's still something that you can still learn from. So that's how you would look for that, is just do a, filter down through there.
That 7,000 one, can we look at what he was casting? Like what talent?
Which one did I pick again? Do you remember?
It's a little bit blurry on my screen, the actual names. They're kind of small.
Here it is. Okay. So, Cass.
I can't say that name.
Cryptic Burn is what it is. So actually, let's first, before we do that, let's look at this. Let's see if his talents are the same. So that's using Sabertooth, Wild Charge, Balance Affinity, Mighty Bash.
Oh, he's Balance Affinity, and he can still be a kitty cat, or is he a boom chicken, or what do you call those guys?
Moonkin. He can shift. He can shift. He can feral and then Moonkin weave. Like if things get too dangerous, he can jump out and just cast some stuff. Solar Forest, Primal Wrath, and Blood Talons. So those are his talents. Cast, Cryptic Burn. So here, Shred is his number 1 in terms of damage. Oh, these are cast. Let's look at his damage. So Ferocious Bite is his number 1. 197 cast. And then Rip is his number 2. Rake, and then Melee. So, but if you look at this, that other druid that we looked at, his Melee was 4th as well.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Very similar. Ferocious Bite, or.
Let me see if I can find out. I think that's under Diona
Yeah, because
Palace.
he has Primal Wrath like I do. He doesn't use Brutal Slash. Which I want to do the math on that and compare, because 69% of attack power, whereas Primal Wrath at 5 convoy points is 5% of attack power star 6? Is that times 6? I'm not sure what that
Yeah,
means.
times 6.
Yeah, so I gotta do the math on that. Like, I mean, this says 5%. I didn't see what it is for mine, because I almost wonder if that's more than what Brutal Slash, and the other guy just uses Brutal Slash more.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have
I
to
don't know.
compare.
So that's why
I'm
you can
comparing the
compare with
math.
the talents and go and say, hey, you know what? Like on the various ones. So, but at least you can see this. And then if we go into cast, and then, like I said, now we're going to the timelines. So this person goes into Prowl, Rake, Thrash. Oops. Wait. Does this go slower? Yes. Rake, Thrash, Swipe, Tiger's Fury, Berserk. Is this a Burden of Divinity? Oh, must be his weapon. I think that's his
Oh yeah, it's
weapon.
like I don't know what. Yeah, it's like I don't know what that is.
So the fact that these two, 2899, 2897, he might be using a macro here because this might
Right on
be,
top of each other.
yeah, this. So he probably has a macro to cast this, and this at the same time. Then Primal Wrath, then Swipe again, then Convoke, and then this is the Convoke channel. Then
Yep.
he's Primal Wrath, two swipes, Primal Wrath, Rake, Swipe, Primal Wrath. What does Swipe do? Swipes all nearby enemies, inflicting physical damage. Wait, swipe. Award 1 point. Okay. So, then he's soothed. Oh, so this is when that first pack, that thing was raging.
He uses Primal Wrath a lot.
Yep. So, yeah, so you can see he uses swipe a lot too in the AoE
Yeah.
packs.
Yeah.
This is swipe your AoE.
Yeah.
Swipe is a AoE thing here, but like I'm not sure if it's the same
Cool
thing as
too.
bear, where bears you don't have combo points, but swipe is a pathetic piece of crap that does almost no damage, but we use it because it's filler to have aggro, because thrash for us is our big damage one. That's AoE, and it's on a, I think, 6 second cooldown, or 5 or 8 second cooldown. So,
Hmm.
because,
So he uses Swipe a lot, but what percentage of the damage came from it?
yeah, see,
He uses it a
that's the
lot.
part that we can see. So that damage tables. So swipe is down here.
Yeah, he uses it a ton, but it barely does. That's why I don't use it very much. I'm trying to. I think that's the one I'm trying to kind of eliminate from my rotation, because it doesn't do much. But if he's using it to build combo points, maybe that's why he uses it so much. It's a cheap way to, because it uses, to say how much energy. Well, yeah,
35.
35 energy. It's not even that small of a.
Wards. This is instant. So this has got a cooldown. 15. Just have a cooldown break.
Rake, I thought Rake was a builder.
Yeah, it's a builder, but does have a cooldown because it's instant. So why wouldn't you just keep using Rake then if it's instant? Because
Yeah, I
this
didn't.
shows that Rake has no. At least what it reads here, Rake has no energy cost. So it's single target.
That can't be right. Rake doesn't have a.
At least not from this tooltip.
Yeah, I swear. I'm gonna have to. Hang on. I'm gonna have to just open up WoW. And actually, I'm gonna look at my talents or my stuff real quick, just so I can
Because
see as we're
Shred
going
is
through.
40 energy, single target. So Shred has a chance to award an additional combo point. Swipe does not.
Yeah, swipe. I think and thrash are the two. I gotta actually look. They all kind of look and sound the same, so I'm like, okay, I'll
Yeah.
actually look at the ones that I have on my action bar.
So, but this, yeah, but you're right. This guy in those packs, he uses swipe a lot. Um.
And then he
So,
kind of stops for a second.
well, depending, because this is DOS. So we're looking at that first pack of DOS. So there might be parts where he's trying to run away from those spinning circles,
Oh,
blades,
that's true.
right? So,
Yeah. All right.
um,
So shred. I never noticed that shred didn't have an energy requirement. Why don't we all just spam the heck out of shred then?
it must do
Weird.
shit damage.
Mine, at least mine is 1,069 physical damage and 20%
Well,
increased damage.
thing is, his shred does more damage than a swipe, but he cast it more too. So I think
Yeah.
so he must be casting it like,
Yeah, because my swipe does 813 physical damage, and it deals reduced damage beyond 5 targets, deals 20% increased damage against bleeding target. But yeah, I mean, compared to, it's just, that's an AoE versus Shred is a single target.
so let's.
Not, yeah.
Oh no, I don't want that. Timelines.
Yeah, and Thrash for me is like pointless. Strike all nearby enemies, dealing 179 bleed damage and additional 632 bleed damage over 15 seconds. That's like pitiful. And it requires energy. You should just remove that.
Okay, so he starts using shred up here. Risen Warlord. So this also shows you, like, he just blindly casts wipe on stuff. Risen Warlord's his main target. Cast Primal Wrath. So yeah, you can try these out, I would say. But at least you...
Yeah.
So you have
I'm
two...
looking at it.
You have two druids to compare to now. With, I guess, different builds.
Yeah.
But they're both builds that work.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like with Icy Veins and Wowhead, they have this is what you should do, but there's also the acknowledgement that everyone has a different play style, because obviously those two do it very differently.
Which is a pro thing, because a good game would have different play styles and not force you into one. Unfortunately, sometimes it does for different classes and specs. But yes, so that's how you use Warcraft logs to kind of like figure things out and improve.
That's exactly what I was looking for too, because one of the things one of the ways I learned is I need to compare myself to other players. Like at one point, I had no idea. Am I doing good? Am I doing bad? And then I got details, and I was like, oh, I suck. I started realizing, like, oh, I'm not doing too good.
But details doesn't show you like what you suck by or how you suck, right? So it just tells you that you suck. So that's why Warcraft logs is better. And then so the quick sim, the raid bots, you've used this before though, right?
I've been tracking my DPS over the last year.
Okay.
Went up again.
So on this one, like the biggest thing is like you can tweak the way you run it, but then like the big thing is to look at, hey, with the way that they ran it, like to get the DPS that they did. Like for example, I just did a dungeon slice and it has one boss in there. This is the rotation that they used. Then the next thing you can do with this computer generated based on that rotation is then look at like one of those druids to compare like, does this match up with some of their stuff, right? Because this one's using shred a lot. But if you look over here, my guess is a lot of this is single target on
Yeah,
on
that
this
right
one,
there
right?
is all single target except for Field
So
Spirits, pretty much.
because I and then you look at like because I looked at it on my because I've been using it for my rogue, and then in the dungeon slice there are parts where it's AOE and some parts where it's because supposedly it's the dungeon slice. So so you, so you should go through so like over here like what ads and stuff like that, boss ads, and this is what kind of goes into now AOE a little bit, and then multiple ads and stuff like that, and all those type of things. And this might help you out on some of that. So you marry the two and find out the best one. But like the Warcraft logs one's a little more realistic because this is a real dungeon with a real person. That one was right mathematically maybe this is the best route, but this is realistic here.
Yeah, that's a simulation. This is an actual record of what happened.
Right. Exactly.
So, quick question, and I'll get out of you guys' hair.
Yep.
I mean, I, I understand how to sift through and compare and pull out the data, and it's all good stuff. How do I get a report from, say, like today I plugged my brains out, and I logged into Warcraft logs, created an account, and left it open, and I need to figure out how to get back to a report, or if I generated a report.
Okay.
And,
Did you start logging in the game?
while I was in game, no.
So yeah. So here, let me show you how to start doing that. So I have this open all the time, right? So it's on my other monitor. So for me, I usually just use live logs, or I'll if I forget to, I'll upload it later on. But essentially, what you should do, and the easier way to do it is, Oracle's Bastion. Okay, he's in Bastion. That's easier to do there. So if you were to start your logs, let's say, or if you, like I said, if you forget, you can upload it later. But essentially, but what you have to do in the game, in order to make Warcraft logs work, is two main things. The first, I think it's in Systems, Advanced. I believe, is it not Advanced? I thought it was. Network. Network. So go to System, Network, and make sure Advanced Combat Logging is checked, is selected.
Got it.
Okay?
There it is.
That's the first one. Make sure of that one. Once that's done, my advice for you is to make a macro. You don't have to, but you have to type this out every single time. Combat log, /combat log, every single time that you want to start logging. Is you have to type /combat log. So, for example, but I have a macro, which I put right here. I made a macro, and all it does is /. So I just click on this when I log in, and it says combat being logged to logs while combat log. And then I just run around and go into dungeons, and then it just starts logging all my stuff.
Playing, yeah.
Correct. And then once you're done, you don't have to hit it or anything. You just log out, and then so the way it works is, so see, combat being logged to logs. Wow. So let me go ahead and remove this. So what you'll see is on your screen, if you're able to see multiple screens, is that if you're live logging, it'll just say, okay, great, we've uploaded what data you have, waiting for the next fight. But if you upload after you're done, for example, you ran 5 dungeons today, you activate the combat logging, you log off, and then you go to your Warcraft logs application on the website. You say, I'm gonna upload a log. Then you can pick that particular log to go. So that's how you would do it. But you have to either type it in, First, make sure to select it, allow advanced logging, combat logging. Then make a. I would just suggest make a macro because all macro has to do is. I said all it needs to do is /combat log. That's it.
That's what I just wrote down. But system, and then
System, and then it was network,
network. That was it.
network, and then check on check. Make sure it's checked. Advanced combat logs.
I got it. Thank you. Thank you.
Cool. And then create the macro, and then you're good to go.